Welcome to another edition of the Dean Legge Show. It's Sunday night. Georgia having an exciting stretch of days here, starting with the Sugar Bowl victory over Baylor. Georgia will almost certainly be ranked number 4 in the final rankings when those come out in in about a week and a day. And then the addition of 2 5-star players in a 3-day period. Keely Ringo as well as Darnell Washington, and then some excitement from the basketball program. Georgia's 10-3 now, with a road win over Memphis, a home double overtime win over SMU. What some of us thought would start happening, which is the talent would take over and start winning ball games, has. So that win over Memphis, a top 10 team right now, will matter a lot when we get to the Ides of March. Because this is a basketball team that certainly has the appearance of an NCAA team, but they've got the rest of the SEC schedule to go, starting with Kentucky coming to town on Tuesday night. We're still waiting to hear about what Jake Fromm's decision will be. DeAndre Swift has decided to leave and go to the NFL. I want to say real quick on DeAndre, he earned a lot of points in my book for playing in that game, and he didn't play a lot in the Sugar Bowl, but he stuck around. He did the practices. I'm hoping he rehabbed some, and he got to participate in the post-game ceremony, the locker room stuff with guys like Zamir, James Cook, guys he's played with for a long time. So DeAndre has, to me, it's obvious to me that he's a top 40 pick, so he should go first round or early second round, maybe higher than that. But in the grand scheme of things, he is certainly going to be a high draft pick. He didn't have to wait it out and turn pro on the 3rd, I think it was. There was some erroneous reporting in December about him leaving early, and I'm sure that aggravated him, but nonetheless, this was certainly his plan the whole time. It wasn't surprising to any reporter or any probably fan that DeAndre decided to leave and go pro. But I just think that that's the way you close things out in your final season at Georgia. Is you go to the bowl game, you participate even if you're hurt in a lot of the activities, and then you play sparingly in DeAndre's case. So Richard LeCount has indicated that he's coming back. He said as such. Malik Herring, the same thing. So the guy kind of we're waiting to hear from is Jake Fromm. My suspicion is that he will announce that he's coming back, but I don't think there's a lot of certainty there with Jake. It sure doesn't seem like he's a first-round draft pick. And there's a couple of different reasons why. I mean, one thing that's going on is that the Dolphins are picking in the first 10 picks. That's where they'll get their quarterback. And then they have 2 other picks in the first round of the draft. Well, they're not going to pick 2 quarterbacks. So almost 10% of your draft picks in the first round are picked, with a team that's going to pick a position that you play, but that's not you. All that means is that your likelihood of getting picked is lower. I mean, when you look at the teams that need a quarterback, there's only about 5 of them really. And you can go read what I wrote earlier today. I'll put a link in the description in the bio. But it doesn't really make it easy for those teams. It doesn't make it easier for Jake to go in the first round. So once you're not in the first round, then it becomes a thing of, are you sure you want to leave? So that's really the question surrounding Fromm. Now, if you don't have Fromm and you head into next season, maybe you adjust your expectations. If you do have Fromm, I don't think there's really any limit on what Georgia can do. My suspicion is that he will come back for his final season at Georgia. We'll just see. That's a tough group to get close to, as I've found out. I mean, it's hard. I think this time a year ago, Jake would have left to go to the NFL, but there was a stretch of time during this season where he had a rough go, and a lot of it had to do with the receivers that he didn't have. So we'll just see what happens with Jake. I mean, I think either way, if you get a good quarterback, a serviceable quarterback, no matter what the person's name is, you can still win the league and take it from there. We've seen that with transfer quarterbacks left and right. Whether you start talking about Joe Burrow, um, obviously Justin Fields, a former Georgia quarterback, and then the former Alabama quarterback Jalen Hurts. Three of the four college football playoff quarterbacks are transfers. So, and then the season before that, it was a true freshman that won the national championship. So we've seen true freshmen get into the playoff with Jake Fromm and obviously Tua winning it as a true freshman behind Jalen. And then Trevor a season ago. There's any different number of ways to win a national championship, win the conference championship. Georgia's going to return a defense the likes of which the school has not seen very often. So this is going to be a heck of a defense coming into 2020. I'm having a hard time writing checks and writing the date as usual. That's such a strange thing to start a decade for sure. But going into the 2020 season. So that's the big thing. And then, of course, Georgia is coming perilously close to signing the number one recruiting class again. They could add as low as low as a 5-star player or maybe a couple of threes, and they would have the consensus number one class in the country. They're going to add players. They're not going to sit still where they're at. They only got like 20 commitments, so it's not where they're going to stay. That's another thing to keep watch of. But this has been a big week for the Dawgs. I mean, again, the school has only won 5 Sugar Bowls in history. Big deal. The school you don't sign 5-star kids every single day. That happened twice. That it was announced. It happened twice in the last in a 48-hour period. And then in addition to that, Georgia hasn't beaten a top 10 team in almost a decade in basketball. I mean, a decade of futility, a decade of wondering about the bubble. I don't think we're going to be in that position when we're sitting there watching the NCAA tournament coming into into March. I expect Georgia to play in it at this second. I expect them to play in it. The other thing is the SEC gives Georgia's basketball the capability to goof up a little bit. I mean, you still have Auburn, Kentucky. Those are quality teams, high-ranked teams. If Georgia beats Kentucky on Tuesday night, which I think they've got a pretty good shot of doing, they're well on their way to get into the NCAA tournament, and that would be a market improvement for in Tom Crean's second year as head coach. Stay tuned to Dawg Post, DAWGPOST.com. I'm going to link some recruiting stuff up at the corner up here. Make sure to check that out, and make sure to click to subscribe. Thanks for watching.